What is the state of race in the NBA after Donald Sterling?
Well, first of all, it always needs to be improved upon. Let's be very, very clear about that. But I also think it's important that a dichotomy is illustrated between that of Donald Sterling and that of today's owners. I've covered the NBA for 25 years now, and I'm incredibly proud of where the league is. Does it have a ways to go? Sure. Can we see more minorities in positions of power as general managers, as president of basketball operations? I'd like to see more than Michael Jordan be an owner in the National Basketball Association. Of course. But when we take into account what Donald Sterling said, and I want to read the quote that he actually said, because I know we heard the lines from him. He said, "It bothers me a lot that you want to broadcast that you're associating with black people. You can sleep with black people. You can bring them in. You can do whatever you want. But the little I ask you is not to bring them to my games." I have not met one single owner in the National Basketball Association that resembles Donald Sterling in any way. And that was before the comment. I haven't met an owner that allowed players, that would bring not just friends, but female friends into the locker room, as you highlighted, Natalie, where he's literally bringing females into the locker room with half-naked men, black men, touching them and feeling their muscles and look at these beautiful bodies. And this is what he is saying in front of them. These are the kind of things he did in the locker room. I have never heard of, I have never seen, I've never heard of, nor have I ever seen any owner other than him in the National Basketball Association do and say the things that he has done and said. So in closing, I would like to say, I appreciate your piece. It was fantastic, by the way. I just want to make sure that we understand while we are looking at the NBA and we're saying there's progress from the Commissioner Adam Silver on down, the NBA is a far better place without Donald Sterling than it was with him. And there's only one Donald Sterling. There's only one. I'm talking about visually. Obviously, in the process, I don't know. I'm the fly on the wall. I have never seen another owner like Donald Sterling.
I feel like I have to ask one obvious follow-up question. Now, we have some time I want to get into it with Natalie and Ramona. And Ramona, your 30 for 30 podcast is amazing because it goes into some of the deeper motivations and insecurities of Donald Sterling, which I want to talk about. But here's the obvious follow-up question. For both of you, you have covered the NBA for 25 years. Ramona, you've been intimately involved in this league for some time. Did the Donald Sterling tapes shock you? Were you blown away? Or did you know something like this could be underneath the surface with Donald Sterling?
Yeah, we knew.
We knew.
We covered him in Los Angeles. ESPN, the magazine, had done a long story on it. That Los Angeles Times had done multiple investigations into it. But there was something about it being on tape, about hearing it. And remember, this is 2014. This is before Ray Rice, okay? Right before, same summer, but right before. We were not in a place where we had cell phone justice, okay? We didn't have that happening yet in this world. We weren't in a place where we had an organization like TMZ that would just run a tape like that. I'm not sure if that tape was made 5 years ago, if it came to a mainstream news organization, if we would have run that. I mean, do you think so? Do you think that ESPN would have run it, CNN would have run it, LA Times? I don't know.
I kind of think ESPN would have ran it.
Found a way to get that in there?
I'm going to speak up for ESPN on that.
I don't know.
I think we would have found a way to have that on tape once it was verified that it was him, the worldwide leader, this place. I think they would have. We would have found a way to.
Something I wonder about is also the sensationalism of it. And so, yes, it was on tape, which of course let us have this verification. Like we've been saying, like, oh, now we can verify it. Now we can push it forward. And of course, there are legalities that you have to consider. But what about Elgin Baylor? Like, at what point do we verify these things? And it tends to be in professional sports in general, we verify them when they have some sort of sensational aspect to them. So it becomes the spectacle. And I think that is something that I feel is a little bit problematic about, when we address these, when we make these leaps and change, that some of the regular day-to-day was ignored, yet when it became sensational or spectacular, then we were forced to move.
I would say to you, there's not a place or a circumstance in America where you can't point to that being a reality. Usually the sensational highlights a particular situation. It forces you to lock in on that particular situation and address some of the crumbs or some of the remnants of what actually exists around it. Then it fades from the spotlight. And not that you get back to normal, but you're safe enough to get back to a place where some of these things are still existing, but it's not as prevalent as it once was before it was highlighted.
And I personally, I'm just glad we got here.
Yeah.
I'm glad the conversation started, and I'm glad the conversation became public somehow. Even though it started from, like, as we found out in your 30 for 30 podcast, it really started from a lover spat that turned into something, a national conversation around race relations, and the NBA was thrust into the front. And Natalie, in your piece for The Undefeated, you said language matters, words matters. And we saw the word owner become examined as well. And we saw players like Draymond Green speak up about the word owner. What is your feeling around the table? Start with you, Natalie, on the term owner.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think all of our work here is about language in a way, and I think, I'm coming from a perspective of poetry where I do have this luxury of compression of language. And so just pulling a word apart. But at the same time, I think a lot of you are poets in a way of, talking about athletics, talking about how this relates to our culture and what this reflects. I think in terms of the word owner, and I don't think anyone can address it any more clearly than Draymond Green. Like, yes, we used this word 100 years ago. It doesn't make it right today. And what I'm worried about, I think the thing I'm questioning is you have the owner. Now, what does that mean about who that word is applied to, or who's beneath that word or above that word?
Allow me to chime in because I'm really interested in all of your opinions about where I stand on this. I got a really good relationship with Draymond Green. I got a lot of love for him and respect for him. I respectfully disagreed with him on this particular issue. Here's why. I own my house. I don't own anybody that's in my house. But when you come into my house, there are rules and regulations that you're going to follow because I'm responsible for the overhead. I'm responsible for the bills. I'm responsible for this franchise.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports, highlights, and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.